Calix's core business covers a lot of different things, but there's one core technology that is there along different lines of business. Our first line of business is water, and we've started to produce a magnesium-based product that's really great substitute for things like caustic soda and helps increase biotreater efficiency and treating sewage and industrial waste and those sorts of things. And that same product is now being used in aquaculture to help the environmental footprint, if you like, of that particular industry, which is going to be really important for protein for the developing world moving forward. And so, look, it's excellent to be now partnering up with the Ocean Impact Organisation. And so, Nick, I guess it'd be great if you could introduce OIO and tell us what it's all about.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Phil. So Ocean Impact Organisation is the first of its kind in Australia, at least, startup accelerator and an aggregator of people that are passionate around supporting and investing in innovation that can essentially improve the health of the ocean. So a little while back, we saw a gap in the startup landscape for something that supports these types of people. There's investors out there looking for deal flow and investing in one-off things here and there. There's founders out there doing their best, but there's no real aggregator. And probably 5-10 years ago, we started to see just about every other industry come up with its own innovation ecosystem to drive innovation outcomes and the future of those industries. Now, the ocean's a little bit different. It's not one particular industry. It straddles a hell of a lot of industries. And so we've taken a slightly different view, I suppose, to solve that problem. And we're aggregating an ecosystem, a multidisciplinary, tech and industry agnostic, focused on challenges that the ocean faces and the opportunities that present themselves from that, but not tied to any one industry. So passion is the glue that holds our ecosystem together, passion for the ocean.
And where did that passion come from, Nick?
Well, my particular passion is, growing up on the water and, surfing and diving my whole life. And I think one of the, if there was a moment, it was well before I had this idea, but if there was one moment that really stands out for me, it was when I did a stint working on the Barrier Reef. And, you'd have some really fantastic days out there at some of the various different reefs. And, as much as it was great, I kept hearing stories about what it was like. And then as I was hearing those stories and I started to see predictions of what the future was like, it almost felt like at the same moment that I was feeling elated to be seeing what I was seeing, it felt that I was getting kicked in the guts with this feeling that my kids weren't going to be able to see what I was seeing. And that was a really horrible thought for me. I thought, well, what are we all doing driving towards economic outcomes and GDP and growth and all these things if things like as beautiful as the Great Barrier Reef and coral reefs around the world are dying in front of, within a generation? And, that really sort of dismayed me.
And so that's where the passion comes from, I guess, Nick. What were you doing before that point?
Well, my background's in accounting. So I'm an accountant. My last corporate role was CFO of a listed data security company. And, we didn't do anything bad. Software companies, apart from the energy, they chew up with data centers and so forth. Their footprint's not too bad, but we weren't doing anything great either. But I'd always had this internal tug of war, I suppose, if you like, where I'd wanted to do more. But at the start of your career, when you don't really know all of that much and you don't have too many contacts for a long time, you think that it's either one or the other. You can either, make some money, or you can try and have some impact and be poor and not be able to support a family. And, 20 years later, with a little bit of experience and obviously some themes, the world heading more towards, purpose business and climate change being such a big driver new business models and so forth, and just awareness in general for ESG growing, I found myself leaving that corporate role and saying, okay, well, hang on a second. There isn't one or the other here. There certainly is a place in the middle for many people now to be able to apply their skills and their toolkit, which is how I think about my skills as an accountant. I'm certainly not a card-carrying chartered accountant, but it's in my toolkit, and I'm applying that now to something I'm passionate about.
And I mean, you've had an interesting sort of beginning. I mean, you sort of started to form the organisation, and I think started to get a bit of momentum happening. And then, of course, COVID hit. How did you sort of adapt and adjust to that, and look, continue to be very successful in getting the organisation off the ground?
Well, look, I'd like to say that it was all strategic, but it was, look, you make your own luck. But there was an element of luck, I suppose, in the timing of when COVID hit. And by that, I mean, we were a few months away from really sinking time and resources into designing what would have been predominantly, or a large part, face-to-face acceleration programs. So that being the case, when we and we also had the benefit of Australia almost being the last country in the world to feel the impact of coronavirus, unlike, say, Europe or the US, where when it got there, people really didn't know what was going to happen. We knew when it hit Australia what it was going to look like. You didn't have to look too far to realise that it was something that wasn't going away in a hurry. So we were able to look ahead and think that at least the next 12 months we're going to be impacted. It's turned out it's probably looking more like 2 or 3 years at this rate. But we've designed everything virtually that we do, and right now that's actually so instead of having to flip what we've been doing, we didn't have to pivot. We designed our future like that, and it's also meant that really a lot of operators doing what we want to do probably should have been looking at this type of more virtual offering before a pandemic came along, rather than, having to pull people out of their businesses, fly them around the world to participate in face-to-face programs, particularly when you're running environmental programs or targeting environmental outcomes. Doesn't really make sense. So it's a good fit for us, and it also means that we've been able to attract international startups as well that may not have seen Australia as being somewhere they could actually get to for a face-to-face offering. So, there's been a lot of positives. There's also a lot of negatives about it as well, but we're pretty good at only worrying about the things that we can actually change. And we've done that, and we're pretty sort of happy with where we are, I suppose. Yeah,
and I mean that first sort of running of the innovation program, the incubator, and the competition there. I mean, I think you from recollection, there was well over 100 entries, and the whole thing was done just in a few weeks of marketing in a virtual world. So it was a pretty good response.
200 from 38 countries. Yeah,
200 from 38. Yeah.
I think that was the key. I mean, we just made it very, very easy. And I think particularly last year when it was fairly new, it was something that teams could get involved in. I think a lot of the feedback from a lot of teams was that it was a really enjoyable experience. And other than giving them exposure and all of the other benefits, it was something for the team to get behind whilst they were in lockdown. And sure, a lot of the applicants, in some cases they couldn't get to their some of their sites where they'd ideally want to get some footage and that sort of thing, but they were able to navigate that and think about more creative ways to do it, from, in a lot of cases, from bedrooms or home offices from around the place. So yeah, it worked really well.
And I mean, I guess that the business model is looking at how you could take that innovation program and help start connect it through to sort of potential the investor community and these sorts of things. How's that going for you?
Yeah, so that's phase 2, if you like. So the first, it's a really long journey what we're trying to set up, and this ocean impact, early stage innovation ecosystem. Even from a global point of view, I would have said 2 years ago it was nascent. Now it's emerging. And Australia, like a lot of instances around technology and innovation, we're just a little bit behind. So for us, it was always looked at as a minimum 5 to 10 year journey, really, where the first couple of years are all about developing the ecosystem and getting it to a critical mass of supporters. And that includes philanthropists for us in our first instance, corporate partners like Calix, startups that are aware of what we're doing, and investors. So the way that we've been building things is to, as we've been speaking to philanthropists, early on we realized that we were talking to philanthropists, but they had two hats. So they're also investors. Yep. And they're really interested in investing in innovations that can improve ocean health. So we are looking to go back to our sort of investor and philanthropist community later in the year with the ask to establish a startup seed fund. So next year we take a startup seed fund and deliver our first sort of structured acceleration program. So Pitchfest is a competition open to all. We'll have a similarly competitive process to take on a cohort, and that will at this stage likely be, again, mostly virtual, but it'll be a 2 to 3 month program, and we'll bring in some of the best mentors around across ocean science and the various disciplines there, and business fundamentals, and we'll look to provide them with an investment check as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, quite apart from the alignment with our water technology and our aspirations, I mean, being part of that sort of that community, I think, is a real benefit that we get from being a part of OIO and a corporate partner. So I guess looking ahead, Nick, what does years 1 to 5 look like from here, and what are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, well, in 5 years' time, we hope to have accelerated 100 startups, and we have the target goal that, along with that, we move $100 million into those startups and follow-on investments that are all supporting ocean health. So that they're our target objectives. Ultimately, in 5 or 10 years' time, we'll be judged on that. It's all good and well to build a community, and we're doing really well around that and inspiring people to take action. But, the ultimate metrics are, can we move dollars? Our belief and our ethos is firmly about business being a driver of change. And, the old philosophy that traditional philanthropy can come and mop up for the sins of business is a completely flawed paradigm from our perspective. And we know that ideas follow money. So it's a little bit chicken and egg at the moment. But, once we can start to see some investor dollars and mainstream investors dollars amassing, then the number of founders will increase, the number of ventures will increase, and the number of ultimately successful ventures will increase. And the other way we think about that as well is that, for every dollar that we see moving into this space, that dollar had to come from somewhere. And, when we're talking about getting access to mainstream investors, that dollar might have come out of fossil fuels, for instance. So it's a double win.
Yeah. No, look, it's great to join up with you, Nick, and the OIO, and hopefully our small contribution. We're only still a small company, but we wanted to do what we could. Hopefully that can help you on your journey.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for the support from Calix. It's great. We love what you're doing, and we've been really careful to partner fairly selectively with companies that really walk the talk, and you guys are certainly doing that. So we're really proud to be associated with you, and thankful for your support.